Hello, welcome everybody to today's session. Today we're going to be talking about Claude Demystified, capabilities, workflows, and what is new in Gen AI. Again, Claude is pretty hot right now, pretty exciting. We're going to talk about some of that stuff. We're not going to get too much into any of the drama stuff with that's going out there with it, but some important things I think you should know about. Again, we're going to try and get through all of the things. I know that a lion's share of kind of the, you know, blogs and whatnot that happen around this generally talk about the Claude code, but there's so much more to it, with like dispatch and co-work and really not really understanding what a lot of the skills do, kind of diving into that and what that means for you. We'll talk about a lot of scenario, use cases around these things, and different kind of workloads or departments or however you want to look at that. But let's get into it. This is me. So I am Mike Luttenberger. I'm a field CTO here that covers all things AI here at Netrix. So I'm AI agnostic. So whether we're talking Claude like we are today, or Copilot, which we'll talk about a little bit in this because there's a partnership with Microsoft and Anthropic, um, Google Gemini, ChatGPT, you name it, can help you out understand what that looks like. We'll talk about a little bit more of that later. The genesis of Anthropic, right? So basically, it was 7 employees of OpenAI that left over concerns of basically the AI safety, kind of how fast OpenAI was going to try and commercialize it, right? And make it not so open, right? Almost paid for. Well, it's going down that route, right? That it is going to be a for-profit. But they thought, AI could be dangerous. Need to make this safe, kind of go down that route with it. So they kind of broke off and created their own company back in 2021. But really where I would say the jump is, and please don't quote me on this exact number because I'm not exactly sure if this data was true, but before, again, going to talk about some of the public pieces around it. Basically, they were sitting, and again, I'm not sure if this is true, but I saw something that was saying that in the App Store, they were like not even breaking the top 100 like before like December-ish area, and then they were slowly kind of creeping up. But then once they had this dispute with the Pentagon, where again, if you're not familiar with that, the Pentagon has been using Claude. They said that it was crucial in the operations in Venezuela and abroad. But one of the things was that they wanted basically the safeguards removed, right, for domestic surveillance and autonomous weapons. Anthropic said no, they refused to do it. So they essentially said that they were going to drop them. Again, there's some legal things going on within that right now. And by them kind of saying no, but then OpenAI, ChatGPT stepping up and saying, oh, well, we'll work with the government then, that was a shift. And what happened is shortly after that, it reached #1 on Apple's free apps in the App Store. Like I said, it was a couple months prior, it had even crested over 100. And then it moved ChatGPT down to #2. So obviously, kind of their whole mantra of starting the company, they were sticking to that, right? That we're kind of taking AI safety first. AI can be dangerous if safeguards aren't in place and whatnot. And they stuck to their guns, and it's paid off because obviously they've accelerated quite quickly to be obviously you're here learning about it, I'm sure, for it, right? And maybe a couple months ago you wouldn't have, but kind of this noise in the AI space is definitely making it happen. So first we're going to start with the chat, right? Nothing different here if you've used any other LLM, if you've used Copilot, if you've used ChatGPT. Again, this part is going to be very similar or just like the others, right? Where you have a chat interface, you can bring in different, different components. Claude is multimodal, or multimodal, where it has different capabilities where it can handle text and images and PDFs, and you can upload charts to it, and say kind of what does this mean, and it will understand that. Documents, right? It will understand what they are. Photos, screenshots, all that fun stuff. UI mockups. It's really great to take sometimes things that are handwritten, and upload it, and it will be able to tell that. Again, the vision and text is really good with this. They used the vision in text with the Mars rover back in, I think it was December. with that to help it kind of guide around. So that was another really interesting use case. They use Claude to do that. So that was pretty cool. And then you have visual. So this is kind of newer to meaning right kind of in line there. It will make a visual of something that perhaps you're talking about, or you want some sort of chart or visual that will help you kind of go along with what you're understanding. But when we get to skills, and again, this is a little difficult to talk about because I don't want to talk about something that I haven't covered just yet, like skills, like I just said, but then there's certain ones that layer on top of each other. So I'll do my best to not talk about something that haven't talked about just yet, but its skills will be kind of coming in the fray soon. But that's kind of what makes this different. And you can invoke your skills as you see here, where the kind of image on the right there, you can call a particular skill or a particular connector. Again, we'll talk about that. You can have web on, turn it off, all that fun stuff. You can have different tones or styles in there of how you want it. But again, this is pretty much like you have in basically all the other ones. So let's talk about the models. So the models, just like, again, ChatGPT has multiple different models. So does Google Gemini. This is no different. And you have different ones that have different kind of capabilities and also have different token costs, right? Depending on how you're using those. So kind of their top flagship one is Opus 4.6. Again, at the time that we're doing this, it could, as fast as this stuff moves, we could have a new one in 5 minutes. We don't know. That was actually another thing, stat I wanted to talk about was they shipped 70, I think it was 74 or 72 different features in Claude in 50 days or something like that. So they're constantly making all sorts of updates to it. Some of them are major, some of them are just minor little tweaks or taking capability and extending a little bit more. But they are constantly making updates to this product, and it's moving fast. Sorry, slight detour there, but so Opus 4.6 is their their complex coding, agentic tasks, massive code base. Again, it has big 1 million token context window on that, so it's kind of your bigger stuff, right? If you're asking it to help you perhaps just write a sentence in an email, this probably isn't the one you're going to want to use, right? Then we have Claude Sonnet 4.6. This is kind of your everyday, right? This is your everyday. I'm just gonna, a slight research on something like that. So it kind of has a combination of speed and intelligence in it, right within there, so that you can go ahead and it does do some lower, not full like project code, but it can absolutely pull code up and all that fun stuff, knowledge work, all things around that. Then we have Haiku 4.5. So this is just fast, right? This might be kind of where you're looking at for, I just need like an email to reply to this email or something kind of quick like that. That's what that is meant for. One of the things that all of them have also is if you see kind of that image, that extended thinking. So they all have a toggle to where you can have them just think a little bit longer if you want to. And again, it's kind of up to you on what that does, but then it will take, again, a little bit longer than what you're looking to do. If you're looking at a very quick one, once you've toggled that, it won't. It will take slightly longer. I'm not saying it takes like 30, 40 minutes, but it will take a little bit longer to process what it's doing. Also part of that, again, is it's multilingual across like, I think it's like 159 or 160 countries right across there. And again, it can be available with obviously the desktop. That's kind of what I'm showing today. There's the API. You can also have it in Amazon Bedrock, Google Cloud Vertex, so you can also surface those models in there. Microsoft Copilot, again, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and then Microsoft Foundry also. So these models are available there, so you don't have to just use them in Anthropic Claude. Incognito mode. So what is it? So you have this option. Again, you'll have a little ghost. Hopefully you can see that in the center there, but it's kind of off to the right until you invoke it, and then it shows up there. But basically, what is this? So it's just like chat, but chat without memory, right? So again, it doesn't understand what you just said earlier, those types of things. This is good if you're trying to look for, as I like to say, maybe you don't want to poison the well with what you're trying to do some research or get a different perspective of, and you have skills or memory or things that are already in there. What this will help do is kind of just take that out, and it's from scratch, right? It's just brand new right there. You're talking to it. It has no concept of anything that you said earlier today, yesterday, or any of that stuff. So keep that in mind. Um, Within there, it does keep them for 30 days, right? Or whichever kind of retention policies are in there in place if you have like a Teams or enterprise plan. So again, if you have them, the back chats within there saved for 60 days, it will do that, right? Whatever your policy is on around that. It can't be converted to a regular chat. Just keep that in mind. It won't be able to do that, right? So it's kind of in its own kind of container, if you will, around that. And then again, if you close it and then you reopen it in incognito mode again, it's a brand new session. It doesn't even, so I could type in something right now. It could bring back a response. I could shut it down, open it back up and ask it the same thing again, and it will do fresh. It has no idea even 30 seconds ago that I just asked it. So keep that in mind. But again, I definitely see some use cases with this where, again, I use this frequently where I don't want to necessarily have any type of memory or anything like that of work I've perhaps been working on that I want kind of an outside neutral perspective on that without that piece of it. Code. So again, Claude Code, this is kind of what I would say put Anthropic on the map. Another thing I never like to get into is like benchmarks, right? Because I think those are, some of them are mean something and some of them I really don't, right? And I think a lot of users in AI would say that I know this one is ranking really high, but it's still not reading this spreadsheet as the example, right? Um, with that, I think there's some real world nuance to that, right? With that. But if we were to look at benchmarks, generally speaking, Claude has always been kind of at the top of those charts. Again, every now and then, OpenAI's Codex will kind of come in over top of that, and the latest model might squeak it out. But then as soon as Anthropic makes an update, then that one kind of takes over. And seeing the same thing with Google, and I even think Grok is up there too, as one of the highest rated code ones. So again, your mileage is going to vary depending, I think, on what you're really doing, honestly. And again, that's a whole nother conversation of where I don't think all of these LLMs are created equal. At by any stretch of the imagination, they all have their pros and cons at things that they're very good at. So it's super important to help you, figure out which you as an individual or as an organization that you're trying to look for in something, or what your needs are around that. Because I've seen time and time again where someone will say, "Oh, we picked this LLM for our organization," and then the question I generally will follow up with is, "Why did you pick that one?" And then they'll tell me something like they saw a commercial or a video on YouTube that it did this thing, and I'm like, that is pretty cool, but do you do those things? And they're like, well, no. It was more like the marketing kind of got them, right? So it's important to understand what what you as an organization are trying to do. But code, let's come back to code real quick. So again, a lot of different ways you can use it, right? You can use it just in the terminal. Again, I think that's probably how a lot of folks do it, or again, in your IDE, right? Your Visual Studio Code, or again, if you're using Cursor or Windsurf or something like that. I think almost all of them will take that in as an extension within almost all modern IDEs for development. Also, the desktop app has it, right? Has a Claude code section to it, again, via the web. You can also do it there. API integration if you're doing something custom or outside of that. And then again, Claude Agent SDK. I think this used to be called Claude Code SDK a few months ago, but again, they kind of updated that language around there. But again, very, very good at doing development, and to give you a perspective of things that I have tried personally. There were things that I have done in the past where, again, before AI, where I have written code that perhaps took me 8-ish hours or so, or 16 hours to write this whole component and everything about it and testing it and all that fun stuff. When I wanted to kind of do a real world comparison of how Claude Code could work for me, I went and I did the identical development piece of the exact same thing, right? But I did it all through, again, all the prompt and all that fun stuff in Claude Code, and it did it in about 60 seconds. Everything. It was identical. There was no difference between them. Didn't function any different. All the same capabilities, and it looked the same, and all that fun stuff. So again, that just kind of goes to show you the power of this for sure. Projects. So like I said, I don't want to like bounce around with different things, but we'll definitely be talking about certain things that get talked about in here that are later in other ones like co-work and stuff like that. So we'll get there. Like I said, it's hard because a lot of these are interconnected. So it's like, which one do I talk about first? So again, projects. So again, if you've come through, ChatGPT, this has the concept of that. Copilot has the same concept of this, right? With notebooks within there. So again, all of them have this. Just kind of think of it as a way to kind of put everything into a folder, if you will, of what you're trying to do. So again, chat history, documents can be isolated to this, knowledge bases, right? It will persist across the session. So what I mean is, let's pretend that I am, working on something here, right, at Netrix, and we're going to be, maybe it's some go-to-market strategy thing, right? So can create basically a project and put any documentation in there. Obviously, we're talking to it right within the chat, and all of those chats are essentially saved within there so that it understands that if there's something that I talk about today and then in 3 weeks I come back, I don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel or talk to it like it has no idea what it is. It understands the context of all of those things that we've talked about. So it's a great way you can bring documents in here. Again, had scope chats around just this subject, but you have many projects, right? It's not just one thing, but these are great when you're trying to, instead of just using, we'll say just the chat interface, but you want something that you're going to come back with or that you're working on over the course of a time, right? Artifacts. So this one I feel is kind of like I don't know, like it was kind of a big deal. I would say maybe over summer it was kind of talked about, and then it just kind of went by the wayside. I'll actually kind of show you sort of one with my skill. Like I said, a lot of stuff bleeds over, but you can kind of take something and then make it basically an artifact. So what is that, or what is that? What is even a artifact? So basically, it's a self-contained, right? We'll call it code or output or visualization, right? To where you can do things with it. So there's a dedicated side panel, right, in Claude that you can go there. Again, think of it as like HTML pages, React components, right? Some, you know, graphics and markdown docs and stuff like that, and you can interact with it, right? It's a great way. What I would say is almost to, a great use case to be like prototyping something, right? You could just prompt it, ask it to make kind of a visual of it, or tell it a certain way, and it will do that for you. It's really really good. It's great at that. Again, a single prompt can have this, and you can click through it, and you can get the idea of what you're trying to do with it. Again, I've seen folks do it with games, or if they're trying to make tools or visualizations or bigger solutions, right? I'm not going to dive into Cloud Code and do all this stuff yet. I kind of need an artifact where I can kind of click around and see how this thing's working. So it's pretty cool. Again, not a showstopper type of thing, but again, if you need some really deep capabilities, it might not be there for. But again, I'm going to show you when we get to skills next what mine actually looks like, and I've pushed it to an artifact. Skills. Okay. So we're going to spend a little time here because to me, this is what makes Claude Claude. Now, again, there's lots of other things which we're going to get to, like Cowork and Dispatch, that are really cool things. But to me, all of those don't work unless you have your skills down. So what are skills? So think of a skill as something that you're going to extend Claude's capabilities, right? By giving it either specialized instructions, specialized knowledge, right? Maybe particular workflows you want, but they can be reusable, right? Over and over again. So think of something that maybe you do every single day, or a series of things that you do every single day, right? You could write those into a skill, and then again, when we talk about Cowork, it can invoke that for you, or just you can invoke that in just the chat, right? Within there and say, hey, like whatever your skill is that you've created and you want it to go do it. So again, what you're looking at here is an actual skill I've created. This is so for me to stay on top of all the news all the time is that I created one around that. It's pretty long, right? These can be very large. It's one of those things I don't think that you're just gonna like do it and then you're done with it. These are markdown files. You can share them, right? So this is what we help a lot of organizations with is getting into different departments, especially when there's multiple people doing the same exact thing, is we can sit with those folks and we can understand what they're doing and their kind of workflows to that, and then we can write a skill to it, and then that could be shared across the organization, right? So that if there is a particular skill of doing said thing, whatever that thing is, and there's 10 people that do that said thing, you can go ahead and write a skill, or we can help you with a skill, right? And then once that is out, it could be shared. And then again, like I said, it can either be invoked by just saying a phrase. Like mine, I have a bunch of different triggers on it, but like one is just like an AI news. So if I go to chat and say AI news, this whole series of things runs out. Not only does it, and again, I'll show it in the next slide. Not only does it go out and do the things, but I have it come back and format it a certain way, right? So that I can look at it and all that fun stuff. So It helps in a few things, right? What I would say is it helps with kind of repetitive tasks, right? That you can have it do it the same way all the time, right? Just by a couple keywords and saying do said thing, and it will go do said thing. So um, I like them. To me, this is what makes Claude Claude. In my opinion, is you kind of how you take it to the next level. In my opinion, is the chat is good, but doing the skills is a whole takes to me it unlocks a whole nother level of Claude that most folks, if they haven't ventured into the skills area, this is game changer in my opinion. I don't know how many skills I have written, probably north of 20 for all sorts of different things, but lots of different personas can go in there. But what you're looking at is actually one of the skills files. Again, you can look at it; it's almost like Word-like, or again, you can toggle it and you can actually see the raw markdown file and you can go about it that way. And again, you can modify these. And again, this one I modified. It wasn't like I did it and I was done. It took a lot of modifications because I did it and I ran it and it came back and it sort of was the way I wanted it. And again, I'll explain when we get to the next slide. But I kept tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until it is exactly how I wanted it. And now I love it. Chances are I'll probably change it in a month, right? Because after I've used it this way, I might think of a different way of doing it. But again, nothing is lost here. I can go in and open that up and tweak the few things I needed to tweak, and then we're back in business. But these are great. Skills are awesome. Like I said, we're going to kind of come back to this stuff when we talk about co-work and stuff like that. Like I said, they're very intermingled. So skills continued here. So what I want you to kind of witness or look at is on the left is without a skill and on the right is with a skill, right? So what I did here was I just asked it for basically AI news. That was kind of the trigger, right? So on the left is sure, cool. This is like your typical ChatGPT, your Copilot, right? It's just going to bring me back just the text, right, of all these things that are going on. But I am a very visual person, and I wanted it presented a different way for me, right? But basically what you're seeing on the right is this is what my skill produces when I say that. So no longer, right? So again, this is kind of the evolution of my skill. My skill was initially when I would say AI news in the prompt in the chat area, it would just go back and I had some certain rule set. Look at the big, look at the big kind of LLMs out there, right? Your chat GPTs, your Microsoft Copilots, your Claude, Microsoft Copilots, your Claude, other big ones like Quen and stuff like that. Just the major ones. And then again, if there's some interesting news about that. And then I kind of gave it some parameters like, I also wanted to have, anything that's new or, stuff like that in there. And that's kind of what you see as underneath there as the categories, right? So that's what it would do. I would just go in there and I would type it and then it would come back and it would be text and it was like, okay, that's interesting, right? I'm just reading text again, not the worst thing in the world. But then I had an idea because I'm a very visual person is what if I made this almost like a dashboard, right? And that's what you're seeing on the right. Now again, this is really long. I'm only showing you kind of a section of the page, but it actually goes really long. It's also dependent upon what it brings back that day, right? In the news day. It looks for the past 24 hours. And again, it will also pull back nothing I've already gotten, meaning if I run, which again, I run it every single morning. We'll talk about scheduled tasks because that can happen automatically for you. Like I said, this intermingles. But basically, a scheduled task will run every single morning so that when I come, I have my basically what you're looking at is an artifact that will come out. And I will have this essentially an HTML page that I can click through. I can filter, and that's what those buttons are at the top, is I can filter on the different types of news, whether it's breaking news or new features or whatever the thing is that I set up for this. Also, if you click into the actual kind of note, it will actually go to where it got it from, kind of my source article right from there. So keep that in mind. This is just how I made it look. Again, even this visually, I changed it. I think it was like a bunch of little tabs almost like, but I realized that when I ran it, I had no idea what the news is about. So then I went in and I rebuilt the skill or added to the skill and told it basically that I wanted it to have the icon for it. So you see there on the left, top left, there's an icon for OpenAI. And then you have the Google one down there for Gemini, right? So that was something just visually I changed. And like I said, I'm sure in probably another couple of weeks, I'll look at this and say, I can make it better. So keep that in mind with that. But, kind of think of use cases around this, right? So let's talk about perhaps a legal use case, right? If you're kind of in the legal law firm whatnot. You could build basically a skill that's like a matter intake, right? That basically captures, new client details, scans, connections. We'll get to connections. Like I said, this all kind of overlays itself. We'll go into the connections, we'll look at folders, emails, documents, and generate basically a structured matter summary, right? With a timeline. Again, if you chose it to do that. So that's just one way you could do it, right? So you could basically have your, the trigger be matter intake. So then you could say matter intake Smith, and then we'll go out and do all of these things and look for customer Smith, right? Or the matter around Smith and do all these things just automatically. So if there's all these different places you check, 15, 20, 30 different places, things you check, emails, this, you want to format it a certain way, it will do all of that just with just saying that. So that's what I love about it. Kind of another scenario, right? Talk about a couple different scenarios is maybe you're looking for HR, right? And maybe HR is looking to job descriptions, right? Because maybe they're doing lots of hiring around that stuff. So you could either kind of take the same job description over and over, or you could create a skill around it, right? That's literally called job description. And maybe it has the company, specific competency language. It could have, tone, company tone, required legal disclaimers, any of that stuff in there, right? So that anybody, and again, you could share this within HR so that they could go ahead and invoke it and say job description, right? Whatever, and then it will go and then it will follow that once it's invoked, and it will be on brand and with this skill, and they'll all be similar, right? That instead of starting from scratch. Same thing kind of with marketing, right? You could have almost a brand voice skill, right? That again has the tone, band phrases, perhaps, preferred, sentence structure, all those types of things on there, so that when again this is invoked and you say, the brand voice on whatever, it will have all of those things within there, without telling it over and over again how you want it, right? So skills are kind of it's the meat and potatoes, in my opinion, that makes once you kind of unlock that piece or really get skills going in an organization, that's kind of game changer in my opinion with Claude. Okay, connectors. So this is kind of now everything we've talked about, we're kind of doing self-contained within Claude, right? I'm like giving it a document, or I'm giving it a skill, or whatever. I'm creating the skill. Oh, that was one more thing I forgot to mention is, again, you can find skills on the internet and stuff like that. Again, be cautious, it's markdown file. They can be shared. You can create your own, and they even have kind of like a wizard where you can tell it, like, I want to create a skill with Claude, and it will just kind of ask you a series of questions that you click through, and then we'll go and build that whole file, and then you can go back and modify it if you want. Forgot to mention that. I apologize. But so these are kind of connectors are pre-built integrations, right? So most of your third parties have it, right? There is basically a connector store directory, however you want to look at that. You have your kind of usual suspects here, right? You have your Salesforce, Slack, Jira. You can have just an on-prem file system, databases, Apple Notes. You can actually have connections to Apple Notes, AWS, Windows, Android, Harvey for legal. So this is actually a huge one. I know that a lot of different law firms were super excited about this, that it would kind of integrate directly with that. Google and more. And actually Friday that just passed, they just announced that M365 connector is there. So you can connect Claude directly with your M365 instance, and it can get your email. It can read your, SharePoint stuff. I tried it over the weekend. It's actually pretty cool how it was able to traverse some SharePoint sites. But one of the things that you see there, kind of on the right, is I can give it also parameters, right? That if you're doing a certain thing, you always allow, or you always have to ask my permission before you do it. And that's how I was testing this out, is that every time I had to go to SharePoint, it would ask my permission if it could go read it. And I could say, yeah, go ahead, and then it will go do it. So again, these are things that you can change over time. And that's what you're seeing here on the right is, in this case, this is the box connector. And in here, you can see that I can always ask it to allow, or give it certain parameters on these different things, like, again, list folder content, searching things, writing, all that fun stuff. So you have control over those, and they just don't have to be out willy-nilly. It kind of gives you that granular control. But also, you can create your own, right? So if you find something in the store that's not there, you can go create your own. But like, lots of folks are kind of coming online with adding their connectors to this right now. Plugins. So what are plugins? So again, this part's a little confusing. I think the terminology can be a little confusing because plugins sort of sounds like what a connector would be, but they're not. So what I liken to say is plugins are a persona, right, with multitask purpose, right? What you're seeing on your screen here is a finance one. So one, also portable. There is kind of a store by Anthropic to where there is templatized, pre-made skills, right, around marketing, design, finance, legal, a bunch of others. Or you can create your own. They're also shareable, again, that you could create one or we can help you create one. And then again, that can traverse through either an entire organization or that could be for a department, right? Different plugins for different departments. Kind of like I was saying, like legal one or a finance one. But they can also invoke skills. So what you're looking at here is an actual plugin. So this is the finance plugin. So you see the different tasks, right, of what it needs to do. So there's multi-step tasks. You see underneath it has a bunch of skills. So again, you don't have to use just one skill. And again, there's definitely a thought process around that. I've worked with some folks who've tried to like cram everything into a skill. I don't think that's the right move at how AI is at the moment. I think maybe perhaps later down the road that will be a case, but right now I think that if you kind of dice up and slice up your skills and invoke them in different ways, and again, you can invoke multiple skills even in your chat at the same time. It doesn't have to just be one. But when they have kind of single purpose threaded things that they're doing, I think once they work together, they're great. So as you see here, there's a bunch of different skills here that are all in this plugin, and then you see a bunch of different connectors, right? You see down there Snowflake and Slack and M365. So this can do all sorts of things, right, within here. And once you've kind of invoked that, it will kind of do this multitask process just on your behalf within there. So again, plugins are awesome. This kind of helps bring that automation to what I think people are looking for. Cowork. Okay, so this is kind of this has been, in my opinion, kind of the noise that's been Anthropic has been making a lot lately, or that noise about Anthropic has been in the news, not just with the whole government thing, but this one here. So what is this? What is Cowork? So again, it's going to use a combination of all the stuff we just talked about, right? So that's why I kind of push this towards the end. It's going to use your connectors, your plugins, your skills, all that fun stuff to do said things. But what it is you don't have to be there for it, right? These are things that could, you know, be invoked on you, right? That you can go ahead and just step away and it does it, right? So you can go in here and you can tell it, hey, do said thing. I need a report on X, Y, and Z. And I also need a presentation and I need you to create me a dashboard and all this fun stuff and go, right? And it will go and do all of these things all at once, right? And then it come back, you kind of walk away, maybe you go grab a coffee, and by the time you get back, depending on, again, all the things that you're asking it to do, it's all ready for you, right? So that's the cool thing about this, in my opinion, right? Is that kind of think of it as this, is that skills are the instructions and context, right? That you're trying to give whatever it is that you're trying to do. Cowork is the environment that it kind of does those things autonomously, right? Or when you ask it to do said thing, right? Obviously, it's just not going to work on your behalf. Although we'll talk about that in a second, because it can. But basically, it will run those multi-step things without you having to do it and hover it and all that fun stuff. So kind of think of different scenarios, use cases of how you would want to work with Cowork. Think if you're like a CFO's like assistant, right? And we'll talk about scheduled tasks in a second because again, this all layers on top of it. But basically, every Friday, there is a set rule, right, to where Cowork can pull, receipts or images from a destined folder, a folder you pick, right, for it to run this Cowork piece in, and only that one, so it's secure from that perspective. And then maybe it writes a one-page summary, for the accountant, right, of what all these receipts are. And then, that's it. So again, it could be something like, organize my receipts. And then that could be the trigger. And then it just goes and does all these things, right, in the way that you've kind of told it to, right? So that's awesome, right? with it. Or even let's take like an HR scenario, right? So you can have co-work prep for weekly one-on-ones, right? With scheduled tasks, which we'll get to, where we'll check your calendar every morning, right? Pulls relevant files for each meeting, right? From that, and it's part of that connected folder, and then generates a briefing document per person you have to meet with, right? So it can look at that and says, oh, like here's the 3 people I have to work with, or I have to have one-on-ones this week, and it can prepare all of that fun stuff. And again, it could even connect to other systems if there's work that you're looking at for them to do from that perspective, almost like a project or something like that. So a lot of different things on that. Legal, right? You could have it, review contracts, right? And then have a pending review flag that if anything's, missing, create a summary table and, put it in a Word doc for you. So that all you do is you just go to that and then you can find that piece in there. So another thing, again, that can run there with that. And then, yeah, I mean, it's one of those really cool things. Just think of it as kind of a multi-step workflow within that, or again, trying to do some financial reporting or whatever. Dispatch. Okay, so again, this is where things can get confusing. So Dispatch essentially uses Cowork, but from your phone. So all the stuff I said from Cowork still applies here, but now you don't have to be in front of your computer. A couple things though I will say is your computer has to be on. And again, when you're in kind of the setup, you can configure it and say basically like always leave it on if Cowork's running or things like that. But essentially, we'll give you kind of 2 scenarios. Let's pretend that you're laying in bed, alarm goes off, you hit the alarm, you grab your phone, and you get an email that says, as you're laying in bed, that, hey, we need to present, on X, Y, and Z at 9 o'clock, and it's 8:30, and you're still in your pajamas and you haven't even gotten your coffee yet. So very cool. You could take your phone and you could tell Claude, hey, basically go to Cowork and say, hey, I need you to get started on this presentation for this customer, and I want you to, look across different things, or whatever. You could invoke the skill, or however you want that crafted. All the things you want. I need a presentation. I need this. I need that. And you do it from your phone, and then you go, and then you can go down and you can get that coffee. And then when you come back up to your desk, the presentation's sitting there right there for you, right? So it will do all of the stuff from your mobile device. Again, your computer definitely has to be on for this type of thing. So it's very cool. Another scenario is, imagine you're out at lunch, right? And perhaps someone that you're at, maybe you take a customer out to lunch or something like that, and they ask you like, remember that presentation that we just looked at, like before we came here? How did you actually get to those numbers? What was that? Now, we could sit there and say, I don't know, I'll have to figure it out and I'll email you later. Or you could pull your phone out and you could just ask Claude and, via dispatch, and just say, remember that presentation that we just did for company ABC? How do we get that total, right? It will look in that presentation. It will find the totals. It will look at any subsequent files that came with it, like an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, and say, here is how we got it, all back to you in text, right? So very cool things, in my opinion, that you can kind of do away from your computer and have it work on your behalf. Computer use. So this is new-ish. It's in what's considered a research preview, right? So understand that. But what it can do is just what you can do on your computer, where you move your mouse, you click, you open a browser, it fills out forms, all that fun stuff. Same thing. So you can do that here with computer use. Again, you can have it kind of, it will ask for permission. You can limit it to which applications you want it to do or don't do, right? Maybe you just want to stick with like Office or Adobe or something like that, and that's it, nothing else, and that's all it will be limited to. So if you ask it to do something on an application it doesn't have access to, it can't do it. You will get kind of an orange glow across your screen, and it will show that it's doing its thing. Like I said, it can open up. Right now there's just a Google Chrome extension. It doesn't work with other browsers yet, but you can do it in there. It can open, it can, look up things on the web, all that fun stuff. So again, in conjunction with dispatch, you could do all of this from your mobile device. You can essentially tell it to go, hey, go on my computer, open up, if you do like movie or video editing, you could say, open up, DaVinci, and I left on my desktop a video file that I need to start editing. Can you load that in? And it will do all those things. Now, again, I know I made it sound really cool and it does all that. Because it is a research preview, it is super slow. In honesty, if you were to do those things yourself, it's much faster. But again, it's great when you're away. But it's super slow. at the moment. Again, I anticipate this will all change. And then sometimes it just stalls out and you just have to kind of re-invoke it again. So I've had that happen where I'll say, go do these like things, and then it just sits there churning and nothing happens and it doesn't do anything. And then kind of the orange glow goes away. And then I'll ask it again, and then it will go through and do everything. So just keep that in mind. I would say it's very much a beta or whatever you want to say, but very cool. Again, you can do all of this from your mobile device if you so choose to. Schedule tasks. So like I said, I kind of talked about schedule tasks a little bit, but basically this is kind of your scheduler to do that. Again, your computer has to be on for this to work. It works in co-work. Again, you can either set it to be manual triggers, hourly, daily, weekdays, or weekly, right? And again, it can work in just a particular folder of your choosing. You can pick different models you want it to use with, right? Haiku or whatever, right? You can pick that. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. You can, like I was saying earlier, I have my AI news basically on a scheduled task every morning. And then it just runs. I don't have to ask it. It can just run and get that, and it produces my whole dashboard for me so that when I come to my desk in the morning, it's ready to go, right? I don't have to go ask it anything. So again, very cool tech here. Office plugins. So if you do have the Office, if you have PowerPoint and you have Excel, there are direct plugins with it. Again, you have to kind of register. If you're in an M365 tenant, you'll have to register those as kind of available plugins, but they are available to use within those workloads. And again, you kind of get a Claude window that will pop up on the right there, as you see here, and you can start talking to Claude via that way within here. So very cool if you're in the Office suite. But I did talk about Microsoft earlier, and this wasn't it, but let's talk about that now. So if you are a Copilot user, Claude has come to you. It has been here for a little bit, but I would say it's really kind of made its strides and steps now. So a couple really cool things. Again, Cowork is now in Copilot for M365, so the paid license within there. It's also in Researcher. So you can use, again, Sonnet or Opus within Researcher and have it do some super complex stuff. Again, if you have not used Copilot Researcher, it's really awesome. It's really good. It's very thorough within there. But with that, they also brought in another piece, which I thought was very cool, which is basically called the Model Console. And what this does is you ask it something, and first ChatGPT goes out and does it, but then Claude comes over top and rechecks ChatGPT to make sure it's right. So I don't know about you, if a lot of folks use multiple models. I do. Like I said, I use almost all of them every day. There's plenty of times when I'm doing research where I will actually have them all do the same research to see where we're coming in here and to see if there's any biases or anything like that. So this is really cool. I've been fooling around with this. Again, this came out about a week ago. To where you can have that happen, and it's really cool because again, it will kind of double check itself within there. Again, you still have the option to still use ChatGPT if you want to, or straight to Claude, or again, like I said, you can have this this model console happen where it will, kind of check each other, and it's really interesting because there were some things I was throwing in there and where ChatGPT maybe didn't even come back with any information on it, but then Claude came in and said, well, this part was missing, but this is the info, right, that I found around that. So it's really cool. Also, it's coming to, and it's already there, with the Office apps, right? So again, if you've ever had an issue in Copilot where you were like, maybe it wasn't really working with Excel all that great. So there's what's called Excel agent mode within Copilot, and it's using the Claude kind of model behind the scenes. And again, I can tell you from using this for a couple of years with Excel in Copilot that this is like a night and day difference in functionality in it. And same with PowerPoints too. Your PowerPoint presentations, in my opinion, are more relevant than they were by using the Claude on there. So that is also there, but it is also in not just those kind of surface level areas, but also if you're in agents. So if you are building anything in Foundry within there, so that's also going to be in there too. You're going to have Anthropic in there, or if you're building agents with Copilot Studio, that is also available. Now you'll have a couple different Claude models, so you have anywhere between like six or seven different models to kind of pick through between ChatGPT and Claude, and again more are coming within that. So again, pretty interesting times for sure. But this is definitely a game changer, especially if you're in the Copilot space, because you actually get to use a lot of these Claude features within there, which I think is awesome. Options are great. Which brings us to kind of the end here, right? And again, we can help you with the things I just talked about, right? Creating skills, right? We can sit down with your departments, understand what are their day to day, what are they doing, how are they doing it, how are they writing it, and again, replicate those in skills, and then they can be dispersed without the environment. Connectors, plugins, again, just general Claude training. Kind of our first one there, the AI strategy and impact workshop. What that's great for is finding use cases and actually getting the ROI. So we actually do kind of a demo, right? And again, depending on, it doesn't matter what model you're using, if you're using Copilot or using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, we understand what the users kind of are looking for in that, and then we build a demo around that so they understand this is what AI can do for me. And then we start meeting with the different departments and we start gathering use cases and tie those use cases back to ROI. So when we present that back, you can say, okay, we can tell which direction we need to go, and we help with the roadmap and all that fun stuff. Data readiness sounds exactly what it is, getting your data together, right? Making sure that your data is ready for AI, right? And making sure all of those fun things. Security and governance is kind of the other spectrum of that. Are you secure and ready for AI, right? Are your documents exposed to people it shouldn't? Are social security numbers in your environment? Stuff like that, right? That helps that. Again, we have a champions program to where we help, an organization get AI champions up so they can keep teaching it. Like I said, Claude released like 75 different things or 74 different things in 52 days or 50 days. This thing is changing. And you want someone to kind of carry that torch, because you don't expect someone in HR to know what's going on with all the latest and greatest, unless they wrote a skill, right? Unless you wrote a skill for that. But that's not the usual thing. So you generally will have kind of a champion team to where when new things are available, they'll kind of be teaching monthly all the new things, because again, AI is changing rapidly, right, every day. Agent in a day, again, creating agents, this is more working with the organization so that users know how to build these. So it's kind of a group setting to where we build agents, understand what they are, how we want to build them a certain way and why. Again, if you just need a custom agent, we do that. Custom integration with other systems, I would do that. MCP servers, model training, again, if there's very specific things you're trying to do with that, we can help train and tune those models within there. Custom lunch and learns, cut sheets, in-person and online live recorded sessions, custom training plan, prompt training. So we do lots of this where we help users prompt, because again, to me, prompting is everything in AI. It doesn't matter what model you're using, whether you're using Copilot, whether you're using Claude, doesn't matter. If you can't prompt, you're not going to get the results you want, and it's not going to be as powerful as it should be for you, right? So helping users understand prompting and advanced prompting within there, and then even an entire company advisory services where we come in and we help you with policies around AI, training around AI, kind of point the ship of what direction you should take as an organization. We have lots of customers who are like, we need to get in AI, but we don't know where to start. This is a helpful guide for that, where this person comes in and plugs in with their team. Think of it almost like a VC, but for AI, plugs in with the team and helps kind of steer that direction and committees and all that fun stuff of where they need to go, and then many more. Again, get in contact with us, right? Get hold of me or someone else on kind of one of our AI experts here that can help you kind of talk through these things. Again, thank you for your time today. I think this is great. This stuff is moving super quick. It was great to talk about this one, and this is pretty funny because this one actually has been updated many times over the past couple of weeks, because new developments, and that was actually my fear, is that there would be like a new drop this morning, and I would have had to have like got it in, right? Because they're making so many updates to Claude. But again, this was a fun one to put together. Again, it's one of my favorite ones that I use quite a bit. Definitely daily, right, on my mornings for sure, getting everything together. But thanks everybody. Don't hesitate to reach out.